What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Took a week off. No, we didn't take the week off. We took the weekend off. But we're back now, episode number 17 of the Big Five Pod. I'm your host, Kyle Morello. Not gonna act like I almost forgot my name for a second. I didn't. I don't know why I paused there. It's fine. Um, Across from me here, or next to me here rather, a little less wisdom, a little less facial hair this time. Jake Copestick, how we doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. I think I see. Yeah, I still have a little bit of a
A
bruise
little
right here.
puff. That's okay.
Yeah, a little bit of bruise, and they said yellow, black, or blue skin maybe on one of your cheeks. So I got a little bit of yellow on my face right now because I'm still a little bruised up. But on Friday, it's 1 week from surgery. I'm pretty much good. I'm not talking funny anymore. And hopefully, if you're watching this on video, you realize like the thing that jumps out to you is that I shaved and not that my face is all swollen. So hopefully that's the
Well, it
case.
jumped out to me first, so
Good. I think it's doing its job then. But
there you go.
yeah, so I got to just sit on the couch, watch a lot of basketball. It was kind of disappointing because the Big Five didn't do so well. But we'll get into that. LaSalle, a nice win today. So a lot to get into. We haven't been here for a couple of days, but I hopefully I don't have to undergo another surgery that we'll have to do that again. So hopefully that's the last time that we're off for a week. But we got a lot to catch up on. So
Yeah.
I'll defer the time to that.
Alrighty, let's get into it then. We are back better than ever. The Big Five, unfortunately, is not. And we're going to start with the team that is supposed to be the premier team of the Big Five, the Villanova Wildcats. We had previewed their matchup on Saturday with Xavier. That was an exciting one. Villanova almost did make a furious comeback, but they lost that one 88-80. Very high scoring one. But the most disappointing one happened on Tuesday night. They lost to DePaul. Now, if you're keeping track at home, DePaul hadn't beat Villanova in 15 years. That streak was snapped on Tuesday night, 75-65. In both of these games, Cam Whitmore played very, very well. He had 42 combined points in the two games, which is definitely something you'll take. Absolutely. Caleb Daniels played really well in the first game against Xavier, 23 points. Eric Dixon had 22 and 10 in the second game against DePaul. The DePaul game really, I mean, that's the one I really, really want to talk about more. So Xavier, we talked about them. They're a really good team. They're going to make a run in the tournament. It is what it is. They're a dynamic offense, and they shot almost 55% in the game against Villanova. So they're a really good team. But this DePaul team is not that good, and they lost by 10. And they had 14 turnovers. They shot 7 of 25 from three. They also shot 9 of 32 from three against Xavier themselves, so that wasn't good either. They're 8-9 in the season. I think it's fair to say that their tournament hopes are starting to look slightly bleak. I mean, they're not out of it yet if they go on an insane streak, but it's not looking good for the Wildcats. Cope. What's the deal here, man? What are we seeing?
So I'll get into like the tournament. I'll start with like the game analysis first before I get into the talking tournament hopes and everything. So look, a loss against Xavier doesn't sink you, but they gave up 88 points at home. They don't lose a lot at the Finn. They've now dropped two straight when you talk about the Marquette game as well. And I said, this offense for Xavier is a buzzsaw. They can hurt you in a ton of different ways. Every single guy that comes on the court can score at a given time. So you can't really help off anybody. Everybody can shoot. You have to play a lot of one-on-one, unfortunately. And Xavier, whether they got a switch inside with Zach Fremantle, a pick and pop shot. I mean, he probably had his best game of the season with 29 points and 11 boards. I mean, he was a beast out there. But the Xavier team is really good. They just beat Creighton at home today. They're ranked 12. They might even sneak into the top 10 if they keep on the pace that they are. So they're a really, really good team. Offensively, I mean, they're dynamite. They're one of the best teams in the country. So that loss, like that doesn't sink you. However, we get to this DePaul loss. You bring up the fact that they haven't lost to DePaul in 15 years. Now, sure, you got to go to Chicago. Like I keep saying, and I will keep saying, it's hard to win on the road in conference play. It is, but this team you have to beat. They had a losing record coming into this game. Like Nova had run over them the last couple years, the last 15 years. Like you said, they haven't lost to them. But this might even have sunk them as far as tournament hopes go. I mean, the 3-point defense was not very good, going under on guys late in the game. DePaul was able to hit a lot of big threes every time Nova would tie the game or get it to within 3 or 4. Here comes DePaul back with a three because they go underneath the screen. Deshaun Nelson killed him inside with 24 and 8 off the bench. And they just allowed him to make some shots and to get some rebounds in the second half. And then when they did have a lead, they lost it. They got to play through Eric Dixon a lot. They can't, they shoot a lot of threes. That's kind of what they've been even under Jay Wright. But I like if I'm them, like I really need Eric Dixon to get a touch on offense pretty much every time down. I got to get him a touch in the paint, a touch inside the 3-point line, place him inside out because he's been money when they've gone inside to him and he can kick the ball out. And he's been very good scoring, getting guys to jump in the air and get foul calls is what he's done his whole Villanova career. But they got a shot stop. Just it's like 5 guys standing the perimeter. They swing the ball. They don't really get anywhere in the paint, and then they fire up a contested three late in the shot clock or something like that. Like offensively, there's a lot that needs to be sorted out here. They got to put more pressure on the rim. Got to try and get to the free throw line more. Where we know that they excel and can hit free throws, and just can't just shoot threes all the time. I'm not saying that they do that obviously all the time, but you got to put some pressure on the rim, get the ball inside. Like I said, Eric Dixon, their offense is better when they run through him and he can get a touch inside the paint. They couldn't knock down threes the last 2 games, and when you shoot as many as they do, they kind of live and die by it. So this DePaul loss is really disappointing as far as tournament hopes go. This honestly might sink them. It might just be Big East tournament or bust for them. The one positive thing is, though, in the Big East, it's a damn good conference, one of the best in the country, in my opinion. I'm not sure anyone would argue with you on that. But they have a lot of opportunities ahead of them. However, these are very tough games that you need, and they're going to be on the road. You have to go to Providence. You have to go to Creighton, to St. John's, to Marquette. They have a lot of tough games ahead of them on the road, and they're going to need them. They're going to need to get 2 or 3 of them to look at an at-large year, or else you might as well just fast forward to March when they go to the Garden and they play in the tournament. So I feel like that's kind of the way it has been. It's not like, hey, they're not a shoe-in, obviously. They're not even in the first 4, the next 4 out, the last couple projections. But this is a loss that really could sink in, have it be Big East tournament or bust for Villanova. So the Xavier loss, no one's going to kill you for that. Yeah, it's a loss at home. That doesn't sink your season. But a loss at DePaul is not very good. That potentially is a dagger in your resume. So they have a lot of work to do. They're still not fully healthy. Hopefully Justin Moore can come back, but they're going to need him to contribute right away, which realistically I'm not really sure you can expect from him. So disappointing year. I did not think that Villanova would be under 500 in January, even with all the injuries and the coaching change. I didn't think this was going to happen. So it's been rough. Hopefully they can turn it around. I think they have the players to do so, but they're going to need guys to score. They need Brandon Slater. I'll tell you, they need him to score more than 5 points. He only had 5 points last night and lost the ball. He helps them win in a lot of different ways, defending, rebounding. But they need him. They need him to score. That he's not really been asked to be in that role because they've had other players around him. That's not his fault. He's been a good player in his role, but they need him to score and to knock down some more shots. So this team has a lot of work to do. Both obviously just winning games, and then as far as a tournament resume, there's unfortunately a longer way to go with Villanova than I think we originally thought.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you want to talk about a 15-year win streak going down the 2. You want to know where 15 years ago was 2008? I was sitting there hoping Johan Santana was going to bring the Mets a World Series championship when he got traded that offseason. That's a long time ago. I've been through a lot of heartbreak since then with my sports teams. You want to talk about 15 years? Like they never lose to DePaul. For them to lose at DePaul, something's wrong with their season. And listen, they're on the outside looking in, and unless they win, like, I don't know, 10 of their next 12 or something like that to end, this year or too close to the end of the year, like, it's bad. It's a bad season so far for Villanova. It's disappointing. I know they're not fully healthy and they haven't been all year, but not good. Not good at all. So hopefully we'll get a bounce back game. We'll go over the upcoming games in the second half of this episode. So moving on, Temple started conference play 3-0. They went to the Tulane game on Saturday with a perfect conference record, like I just mentioned, but they lost Tulane 76. Back and forth game. I mean, very high scoring, obviously. Caleb Battle, 21 points. Zach Hicks stepping up, 16 points. Damian Dunn with 16 points as well. Tulane, 49% from the field, 44% from three, almost 44% from three. So they shot the ball really well. They're a really good offense. Tulane's definitely a player in the AAC. So definitely a game they would have liked to win, but not the worst thing in the world. What was almost the worst thing in the world is the 20-point lead that they almost blew to Tulsa on Tuesday night. They won 76-72 on the road, but man, was this a weird game. They were up double digits at halftime. They were up as many as 20. Damian Dunn gets ejected in the second half. Jaleel White gets ejected in the second half as well. Things kind of started falling apart. They ended up pulling it out. And the big three that we mentioned in the first game were the leading scorers in the second game as well. Zach Hicks with 14, Damian Dunn with 12, Caleb Battle with 13. Dunn probably would have had more if he didn't get ejected, but it's fine. Yeah, the largest lead was 20, which is insane. They also have 15 turnovers, which is most times it's going to lose you the game, and it almost lost them the game. It's a really not good Tulsa team. So listen, still 4-1 in the AAC. Right now, they have the best record out of any of the Big Five teams at 10-8, which is absurd. What's the outlook on this Temple team after this these last two game stretch here going forward?
So I definitely think it's trending upwards a little bit. However, especially from a guy like Damian Dunn, who's supposed to be one of your leaders, like you can't get thrown out for something small like he got thrown out for. Those are charge call, and I get it. I'm not really a big fan of all the charges in college basketball. I think guys get bailed out with being out of position on defense or know they're going to get beat, and they just throw their body in front of a driver. I understand if you're frustrated with a call, but you're up a bunch of points. You actually got ejected with 16 seconds left in the first half. You got ejected right before halftime, which makes it even worse. You have an almost 20-point lead going into halftime. Guy puts his body in front of you. You're driving the basket. They call a charge. Okay, whatever. He then steps like AI kind of steps over the guy, and they throw him out for a flagrant two. I was watching the film on Synergy, so I didn't get to see the whole clip. I wish I could find it on Twitter somewhere. Maybe I'll have to keep digging to find it. But I couldn't see the whole play, but regardless, it looked like it was just something that you shouldn't get thrown out for. And then for Jaleel White to get thrown out as well. He had a shot where, again, from the TV angle, you can't really see if he gets contacted. He was fading away from the rim, puts up a pretty contested shot, yells at the referee for a call. The ref tees him up, and then as he's walking down the court, he elbows a Tulsa player out of the way. Just nonsense. You can't get thrown out for little stuff like that, and that's going to end up killing you. You play any other team, unfortunately. No disrespect to Tulsa. Eric Conkle's in his first year. He had a really good tenure at Louisiana Tech. Coached up one of our favorite draft prospects of last year, Kenneth Lofton Jr. But he takes over a Tulsa team that's just not very good. They're obviously rebuilding. I believe they're 4-11 with the loss to Temple the other night. So they're one of the worst teams in the AAC, potentially will be the worst team in the AAC this year. And if you play anybody besides that team, you probably lose that game without Jaleel White and Damian Dunn for essentially all of the second half. So little stuff like that, you can't let get to you. Villanova always says, attitude, their mindset all the time. You can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you react to it. Little stuff like that is what's gotten them very far as a program. You can't do stuff like this when you're going to play at Houston or Memphis that they have coming up. So just wanted to put my 2 cents in on that, because if two of your players that are going to play a lot of the time are going to get thrown out, maybe you could sneak out against Tulsa. You're not going to be able to do that against pretty much any other team. But it was a solid win. It's never pretty. Doesn't have to be. A win in conference play on the road is a win in conference play on the road. Zach Hicks got going, knocked down a bunch of shots. Damian Dunn hit a couple threes in the first half before he was ejected. And then Caleb Battle hit a couple shots to bring him home. So it's not always pretty, but like I said, it doesn't have to be. They're 3-1 in conference play, considering the foot they got off on the season, how they ended conference play. For them to be now 4-1 in conference play, I'd say they're probably pretty damn happy with that. So good for them. They got a game against Memphis, who I was watching tonight, coming up at home. That'll be a big game for them against a team that's probably top 3 in the AAC. So they have another big game coming up for them. But win's a win. Wasn't pretty. It was against a pretty bad team, but we'll take the win with the Owls.
Yeah, I mean, listen, especially after the early season struggles versus teams who they were definitely better than, you'll take the win with the Owls, like you just said. I mean, they, it's about stacking wins at this point. They're the only team in the Big Five who's above 500, which is really bad. But you know, they they are making some noise in the AAC. They are 4-1. They lost. The one loss was to a really good Tulane team. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of basketball to be played in the American Conference, so looking forward to that. All right, now let's take it over to the Atlantic 10 and talk about their two teams first. We'll start out with the bad side of it, St. Joe's. Man, this is not good. Now they did lose to a good Fordham team, 66-54. And then Tuesday night, let up 92 points on their home floor to Duquesne. I'm honestly at a loss for words with this Hawks team. I mean, Duquesne shot 56% from the field and from three. Cam Brown did have 25 points on Tuesday night, but they had 17 turnovers as a team. St. Joe's did. It's just not getting any better. They have some talented guys, but this defense against, Duquesne's a good shooting team. You know that this is what they do. And to leave guys open, they let up 60 points in the first half. Just a brutal showing. And, even going up against one of the better teams in the A10 this year in Fordham last week, or this past weekend rather, and, only putting up 54 points. This isn't good. And I know we've talked about the laying hot seat before. I think it's getting even hotter. Now, I don't know if a move will be made after this year like we talked about before, but is there anything that this Joe's team can do to pick it back up, or is it just something where it's not working?
Yeah, it's tough because here they are with a loss tonight against Duquesne where they gave up a ton of points and Duquesne shot the lights out. They're now 0-4 in conference play. Like it's just not it's not very good. It's not cutting it, and like we're still waiting for them to get off the ground, beat a good. They didn't have a very good non-conference slate that they snuck out a 500 in. So I don't know. They have to play defense and defend the 3-point line for anything to get better here. Once you get a little bit of penetration here and guys collapse, like guys are and the defense is frazzled, like guys are just wide open on the 3-point line. They gave up a bunch of points. I believe they gave up 60 in the first half tonight. And even though they only gave up 30 points in the second half, they almost gave up 100 on the home floor. I'm kind of at a loss for words for it too, because I'm just trying to find something good here, but they're still winless in conference play. I think we might have expected that. I don't think anybody expected this team to be in the top half or even the middle of the pack almost in the A10. But they got to play defense to crawl out of this hole even in the slightest bit. Yeah, they have some guys that could score. Cam Brown's had some very, very good games this year. We all know all about Eric Reynolds, who can legitimately be an all-conference player. But if the team's going to continue to struggle like this, I don't think he's going to make it there. But it just keeps coming down to the 3-point defense. Nothing is going to get better. They're not going to beat any good teams. I don't. Even if they have guys that can score, Cam Brown has a good game, Eric Reynolds has a good game. I don't imagine they're going to win any games if they got score in the 90s every night. I don't think they're going to be able to win shootouts that way. So until the defense gets better, specifically on the 3-point line, I don't really know how it can get much better for these guys. And it's a shame because ever since Martelli's firing and even his last few years with guys being hurt, they weren't really that successful. And it's almost to the point where they're just not really that competitive at this point, which is a shame to say, but they got to defend. The good thing is for them, they're playing another team in Loyola Chicago coming up that doesn't have a win in the conference. So maybe they can get one at home here, but the defense just hasn't been there. And realistically in a college basketball game where if you don't go to overtime, you only play 40 minutes. If you got to score, I don't think you can bank on winning when you're like, hey, if we don't score in the 80s or the 90s, we're gonna lose. I don't think that's a winning formula. I don't know how many games you're gonna win that way. So until the defense tightens up here, I don't know how much better it's gonna be. I think the Billy Lang discourse has been going on for since last year too. And if they're not gonna show any growth, I know you gotta wait for him to get his guys in there. They do have a good class, like we've said, coming in next year. But if things aren't going to get better and you're not seeing that improvement, I don't know how you can. I don't know what your argument is to keep him in there then. So this St. Joe's team is a lot to figure out. Obviously the tournament's way out of the question. We just want to see improvement here. Maybe you can win 2 games in a row. Just get better, especially on the defensive end. So it's been a tough season so far. Very rough start to conference play. I don't really know what else to say at this point.
I mean, listen, they
I'm
were
starting
never
to I feel bad for their fans, dude. I really do. They shouldn't have to deal with all that.
row.
Uh-oh.
Listen, they were never a tournament team. They were never ever going to be anywhere close to the tournament. It would have been an extremely major surprise if they were. But you at least, like you said, want to see some improvement. You want to see that the Billy Lang era is going in the right direction, and it's not. It's not. It's not at all. It's brutal, and I know he's got a good class coming in next year, but will he make it there? I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know if
Then
he
you
should.
risk losing those guys. Like it's
Of course,
it goes beyond just the wins and losses. Like specifically this year, they have to look at it from a bird's eye
listen,
view, I
it's a shit
guess.
show, and they probably shouldn't have let go Martelli though. Maybe a change was needed. I don't know, but they probably shouldn't have done it the way they did it. But uh, I don't know. I don't
And
know if
that's
he's the right
also a
one.
whole nother conversation for another day. We could probably
I don't.
spend half an
We can
episode
definitely get
talking
into
about
that another time
that.
on another episode. Maybe we'll have a guest
Yeah.
in here who can help us go over that. But
Mhm.
I just don't know if Billy Lang's the one. That's all I'm saying. All right, we're gonna move on to the other A10 team who's actually doing well the past couple games. The LaSalle Explorers, 2 straight wins in Atlantic 10 play, and 2 close ones too. They beat Rhode Island 77-75 this past weekend, where Khalil Brantley, he's a dude. He is a dude. 29 points, 8 rebounds. And I will give props to this LaSalle team because we always talk about their turnovers. We always say they need to clean it up, and they cleaned it up. Only 7 in this game against Rhode Island. Turns out, if you don't turn the ball over, you might win some games. Who would have thought? Now, in this next game, they did turn the ball over 14 times, and they did end up winning anyway. Wednesday night against this UMass, 78-77 on the road too. So very impressive. Jeremy Brickus, 25 points and 6 rebounds. They shot 52.5% from the field. Like I said, 14 turnovers. So that wasn't great. But listen, you shoot 52.5%. You got a guy getting 25 points. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. And they played a great coach in Frank Martin. UMass is definitely the better and more talented team, and they found a way to win. No disrespect to Fran Duffy, of course. He is the legend. He is Mr. Big Five. Frank Martin's been to a Final Four. So 2 good wins from LaSalle here. What did you like about these 2 games from the Explorers?
One guy that I want to give some props to and give a shout out to is Jameer Brickus. The game against Rhode Island, he came off the bench, and he had a couple big buckets for them. Made 3 free throws on a foul 3-pointer in overtime, and then had a bucket when overtime started against Rhode Island. And then this game, he had 5 threes in the second half tonight. I mean, he was unconscious. Maybe he's not the fastest guy, but man, that guy is quick. He can change speeds, change direction very quick, get you on your heels. He had a great game offensively tonight, and that's really what propelled LaSalle, especially in the second half. 7 of 13 from 3 after going 3 of 13 in the first half. They were able to knock down some shots. Andres Marrero got involved, had a couple shots in the first half. So hey, to go up there where they haven't won in Amherst since 2019 against a good team and UMass, who I personally really like Frank Martin. I thought the hire of him at UMass was awesome. I don't know if this year is the year where he gets them to where they need to where we know that UMass can be historically, but I do think that he was a home run hire and he will make UMass a contender at some point. But was able to get a lot of transfers in, bring in some guys with some experience. And LaSalle went in there and beat them today. Got to give them credit. They were down 8 at halftime, 6 or 8 at halftime. They
I think
were
it was
down
6. I think it
most of
was
the
6.
first half. So this is a very, very good win for them. Probably a little closer than they wanted to. I thought that they had enough of a lead where they could maybe win this game by 2+ possessions. But a win is a win, especially when you do it on the road. That's now 2 in a row for them. They're feisty. They're going to be competitive in games like this, I feel like. And you do have some first-year coaches in the A10, with Fran Dunphy being one of them. But, they just played 2 first-year coaches in this conference, and Frank Martin and Archie Miller. But I love the fight of this team, and hey, they got a guy who knows a thing or two about coaching basketball, Fran Dunphy, and he put it on display tonight. With how good he was pushing buttons. Dayshawn Shepard's played good. He's another guy I want to give a shout out to, with Rokas Josias being on the shelf a little bit. Didn't play tonight. Dayshawn Shepard's giving him some good minutes, gives him some bounce, some athleticism, some explosiveness that I feel like the rest of the roster lacks. So he had a nice lob tonight, blocked a shot, had 9 points, knocked down a 3 in the second half. So he's been giving him some good minutes. I hope he can get out there. I think he adds another dimension to some of the lineups that they can play, being an athletic guy who can block shots, can also be a lob threat. Just gives him an athleticism component that I feel like the rest of the roster lacks. So he's been giving him some good minutes. Khalil Brantley's had some good performances, and then Jameer Brickus went off today. That if you told me, hey, that was his best game as an Explorer, I don't think I'd bat an eye at it, because he was terrific tonight. So good for them that they've got 2 in a row. They've got another coming up against Fordham over the weekend, and then they're going to play St. Joe's soon. So we'll get another Big 5 matchup coming up. But 2 good wins for them, 2 close ones. But to beat UMass, where they haven't won since 2019, props to them. It was a hell of a win to be down in the first half to a good team with an experienced point guard and Noah Fernandez. Very, very good win for LaSalle tonight. And I'm impressed that even with losing some games in the non-conference, and then not being able to, they were to beat Rhode Island, but then the loss to VCU New Year's Eve, I believe, to bounce back and get two in a row here. Very impressed with them.
Absolutely. I'm very impressed with them too. I mean, you can argue that, Rhode Island maybe isn't better than them, but I brought this up to you before we just started recording here, that I think they arguably beat 2 teams that are better than them, and that's hard to do, especially in 2 close games. So shout out to Fran Dunphy and the squad. Good for them. All right. One more team to get into before we'll quickly go over the upcoming games. This Pennsylvania Quaker squad lost to Cornell, who was arguably, probably 1A and 1B in the Ivy League. They did get kind of blown out though, 88-69. Dingle 21 points. Cornell shot over 50% from the field. They had 20 turnovers, and they were 4 of 19 from the 3. So, like we've talked about before, kind of a burn the tape game, but maybe don't burn all of it, because you're going to need to beat them again in order to win the Ivy. And then also against Columbia, they actually had the entire Ivy League, as you mentioned to me also before the show, had a back-to-back this past weekend. So they played Columbia in the next one, and was not a lot to write home about either. They beat Columbia 84-55. Except for Jordan Diggle. He went off for 33 points. But this Columbia team's not good, as we talked about. They shot almost 53% from the field. They shot 65% from 3, which is insane. They won their rebounding 41-30. They did have 17 turnovers, which is not good. 37 combined turnovers in 2 games is really, really bad. So, two games there for the Quakers, 1 win, 1 loss. I think the Cornell game probably says more that you need to know than the Columbia game, because I think the Columbia game they should have won anyway. Good bounce back, of course. I'm not going to discount that. I still think they're the class of the Ivy League, along with Cornell. Do you have any thoughts on this Quaker squad here?
So the Cornell game, I watched that game. I don't know, 8 or 9 hours post surgery. My mouth was very numb and it hurt really bad while I was watching the game. But it's the turnovers that killed them. They can get away with it against a team like Columbia that they're more talented than, but against a team like Cornell, especially on the road, that's going to be, if they can make the final 4, which I think we all assume that they should. But the Ivy League record wise, actually pretty competitive this year. Cornell's gonna be right there with them. They're probably gonna have to see they're gonna have to see them again, not only this year in the regular season. They'll come down to the Palestra, but they're gonna have to see them if they want to get into March Madness. They're gonna have to play them again, probably in the Ivy League tournament. So it's a team that they're gonna see potentially two more times this year. And the turnovers aren't gonna fly against a team like that. They actually got a lead in the second half. Clark Slacker came alive a little bit, was able to knock down some shots in the second half. But once they were turning the ball over, it was a frenzy. Cornell was hitting threes. Michael Moshkovitz had to play quite a bit in this game just because he can switch on the perimeter a little bit better than Nick Spinoso. And they needed that against a team that pretty much everybody can shoot the ball on Cornell, and they're going to put up a lot of threes. So the 3-point defense a little bit concerning, but it's the turnovers for me. You can't turn the ball over that many times, especially on the road against a very good team in the Ivy League. I think that game definitely says more about them than the Columbia game, because the Columbia game, you can survive it, and they just didn't have anybody that could stick Jordan Dingle when he went off. So the Cornell game definitely says more. But hey, they were able to bounce back, having to travel that night. I don't know why the Ivy League was just like, oh, why don't we do a back-to-back for everybody? But they had to leave Cornell, go down to New York City and play Columbia, bounce back on a very, very short turnaround. So good for them. They were able to do that. They've earned themselves a nice break, but now they got to go all the way up to Dartmouth, which I did with the football team. And it's not fun. It's probably the worst trip in the Ivy League. I can't speak on every location, but that one sucked because it's very far and it's in the middle of nowhere. But the good thing is for them, Dartmouth is a team that they should beat. They got to drive very far to get up there for the game, but definitely a team that they should beat. So they earn themselves a nice rest here, but to split the doubleheader with a very short turnaround, I'd say it's a win in my book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll get into that Penn Dartmouth game in a second here, because now we're going to transition to the upcoming games. We'll go through these for you real quick here. Friday night, Villanova taking on Butler in Indiana. A little bit about this Butler Bulldog squad. They are 10-8 on the year, 86th in Ken Palm. So they're a decent team on the same level, I would say, as Villanova. I was looking through all their stats and stuff. I don't think there's anything they do particularly well. But there's one thing that they don't do particularly well, and that's offensive rebound. They are 340th in the country in offensive rebound percentage. So not really good there. They also have three guys who are literally all averaging around 12.5 points per game. Jaden Taylor, Chuck Harris, and Manny Bates. They do have five guys in double figures overall, including those three. So balanced scoring attack for them. Apparently they don't crash the offensive glass very well, which is definitely something that Villanova can take advantage of. And listen, they need a bounce back win. Do you think they get that in this one?
So, man, it's hard to say because here's the thing. Now, yeah, Butler, they've only beat Georgetown, DePaul in the conference. They've gotten kind of blown out by everybody else playing Seton Hall. They just got blown out by St. John's. They played UConn. Hasn't really been pretty besides the wins against Georgetown and DePaul. Very good coach on the other sideline, though. Thad Matta comes out of retirement, is now the head coach of Butler, where he was once an assistant and the head coach for a year before heading to Xavier and Ohio State. This guy now hasn't coached for a couple of years. This guy's a bona fide winner. Been to a Final Four with Ohio State. 16 of the 17 years he's coached, he's won 20-plus games. So this guy's no slouch. Doesn't matter. He's been off. It's almost like a Fran Dunphy situation. Even though he's been off for a couple of years, guy's still a damn good basketball coach. Brings in a couple high major transfers. Manny Bates, who you talked about. If there's one thing that Butler does well, they're top 60 in Ken Palm on defense. That's because they're anchored by Manny Bates, third leading shot blocker in the Big East, comes over from NC State. They got a veteran point guard, Eric Hunter Jr. from Purdue, who started for 4 years, who was started pretty much every game last year, was a 4-year player for Matt Painter, Purdue. So they do have some experience here. Like you said, Chuck Harris, Jaden Taylor, Simas Lukosius, who I really like, can spread you out a little bit in score. So look, this team's no slouch. Another 10-8, not projected to be great this year. I also am a big Thad Matta guy, kind of like talking about Frank Martin, where I do think this is a home run hire. He'll get Butler back to where we know that they can be. And then have to go on the road to Hinkle Fieldhouse too. Man, I mean, at least it's not a team that's going to crash the boards and kill them rebounding, because we know Nova's not exactly great at that. Um, I do think they'll get a bounce back win. I think Cam Whitmore's been playing well enough that they can get one, but if they lose, I'm not really gonna be surprised. Like I think we're just starting to find out that they're not all that they were cracked up to be. As Nova fans, we've been spoiled the last 6 years with 2 championships and 3 Final Fours, that like we're not used to seeing this. We're not used to an under 500 team that's teetering around the 500 mark. So although it's tough to say, although you got to go to Hinkle Fieldhouse, you got to go on the road against a good head coach in Thad Matta, a shot blocker and Manny Bates. I do think Nova sneaks one out here and they'll win. It's definitely going to be close. I don't think they blow them out at all. But I do think that they will sneak out a win, because they desperately need it. They desperately need it. I don't know if you're 8-10 with the schedule that they have coming up, can't do that. So I'm gonna take Nova in a close one here. Although they're going up against a guy who I think is a better coach than Kyle Neptune. No disrespect, but you look at his track record, man, it speaks for itself with that amount of guys a winner everywhere he's gone. And a team, yeah, they're young, but they have some guys that have been at Butler for a little bit. They had some high major transfers. I think this will be a close one, but I'll take Nova to sneak it out here, even though we'll probably be a nail biter down the last possession.
Yeah, I think Nova can win this one, definitely. Like you said, it will be a nail biter. They need it though. They need it, and we'll see what they're made of. I mean, if they show the desperation that we think they should, they'll win this game. And if they don't, then they'll fall to 8-10 on the year, and that's not something they want to do. So there's that. All right, moving on. We got 3 Saturday games. The first one taking place at Hagan Arena. Loyola Chicago is coming to town. And excuse me, it's been a rough go for them. They've lost 5 straight games. They are 213th in Ken Palm this year, which is definitely a far cry from the last few years when they were, good tournament teams. They're one really, really bad trait. Well, I mean, they're not a good team, so they don't have really many good traits, but their worst trait, they are near last in the country in offensive turnover percentage, 362nd, which I believe there's 363 or maybe close
Yeah,
to 3.
they are only ahead of Delaware State.
I was gonna say 363. Yeah,
that's not good.
So that is brutal. We talk about all these Big 5 teams having bad turnover games and stuff. There's no team except for Delaware State like this Loyola Chicago team. And that one thing they do well, however, is they are 30th in effective field goal percentage on offense. So, they can shoot the ball a little bit, and when they have the ball, they turn the ball over a little too much. But when they have the ball, they're not bad at shooting it. And their best guy is Philip Alston. He's averaging around 15 points and 6 rebounds a game. Listen, this, like you mentioned before, they're 0-4 in the conference. So is St. Joe's. This is a game that will prove just exactly how low they've fallen. I don't know who wins this game, because I think it's going to be an ugly turnover battle. Probably, I don't even know if I want to say it's a low scoring game just because of turnovers, but like it might be. I don't know. But also St. Joe's doesn't really play defense either. So how do you see this one playing out?
So I actually think it'll be pretty high scoring, because Loyola in their own right hasn't been very good defensively either, and is like you said, prone to turn it over. Saw him play VCU last night, turned it over 22 times. That's the reason why they lost. I believe VCU had 34 points off turnovers. There's your game right there. They're only above Delaware State in that category. They give it away left and right, and that's what's killed them this year. So if you're St. Joe's, what you got to do is you got to come out in your 1-2-2 trap press that they have Rasheer Fleming at the top of. However, when you fall back into that in the half court, you got to make sure you identify guys when you're playing man. You got to make sure that you're communicating so you don't leave anybody open, because they do have some guys that can shoot the ball a little bit. Braden Norris has been the point guard there for the Illinois upset a couple years ago when they beat the team with Io DeSumo and Kofi Coburn. That was the point guard last year. So they have some guys that have been there. Tom Welch, Marquise Kennedy can defend a little bit on the perimeter, knock down some shots. You talk about effective field goal percentage. Saw a stat yesterday. Tom Welch is shooting like 80 or 90% inside the arc on 2-point shots. So when he rolls to the basket and they can get him looks at the basket, he can knock him down. Backdoor cuts is another thing this team will do. So that St. Joe's got to make sure that they're not ball watching. But The turnovers to me is what's going to decide this game. If St. Joe's can turn up the pressure on their press that they want to run, have Rasheer Fleming at the top bother, a smaller guy like Braden Norris, who's they list him at 6 foot. He's probably all of that, if not that, or maybe 5'10", 5'11". He's all of 6 foot if that's what they list him at. So see if he can bother a smaller, not as athletic guy like Braden Norris, turn him over a little bit, get some easy buckets for them. But it's really the St. Joe's press versus the the turnovers for Loyola is kind of where I'm looking for this game to be decided. But Loyola can knock down threes a little bit. So if the to me that's the one aspect of this game where I do think that St. Joe's could lose is if Loyola has a very good shooting game from three. You're hard to beat any. It's going to be hard for you to win a game if the other team's shooting a bunch of threes and knocking them down. So that's the one aspect of this game where I think St. Joe's could lose. However, I do think that they'll win. I think Loyola is also finding out that it's a lot harder in the Atlantic 10 than it is the Missouri Valley Conference to win games. So I will take St. Joe's here because you will hit rock bottom if you lose this one. They lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, a loss to South Florida. That obviously aren't great in the non-conference, but if you lose this one to a team that's struggling, has a bunch of new players from last year, then I think you got some serious problems. So I'll take St. Joe's here because I think Loyola is realizing it's harder to step up in conference. They turn the ball over a ton. They don't take care of it, and they give away a lot of free points. And for a team like St. Joe's that kind of wants to run up and down a little bit, I feel like that could play right into their hands. So I think St. Joe's will get their first win in conference play. Unfortunately, this Loyola team's not very good. These are not Porter Moser's Ramblers. And I think Drew Valentine's a good coach. He got him to the tournament last year, but they just haven't been very good this year. So I will take St. Joe's in this spot. I don't want to say I'm doing it reluctantly, but I just don't think this Loyola team is very good. So I will take St. Joe's here to get on the board in a 10 play.
I'll say I'm doing it reluctantly because they just haven't shown that they're capable of winning games. But I do think they're going to be capable of winning this one because Loyola Chicago's not a good team either. So we'll see what happens. 12:30 Saturday, Hagen Arena. Another Saturday game going up to Dartmouth. Penn taking on Dartmouth. Listen, I don't even know if I want to spend a lot of time on this game. I don't even know if I'm going to let you spend a lot of time on this game because I don't think there's a lot to spend time on. Dartmouth is 301st in KenPom, again out of 363. They are 342nd in offensive efficiency, which sounds bad, and it really is. But here's another stat for you. They are 287th in KenPom or below in 9 different offensive categories. That's really bad. Now, granted, obviously, you hear 342nd in offensive efficiency. It checks out. It's going to work. They have 3 guys who are averaging around 11 points per game. I did not write their names down because we were right about a kickoff here, and I did not want to. They have nobody else in double figures, though. Listen, this is a game Penn should win. If Penn loses this game, we're going to come back on here. We're recording on Sunday night. We're going to come back on here on this Monday morning release next week and have some words. So, not for you, of course, but for the Quakers. So listen, I'm gonna give you like 60 seconds, if that. What do you got to say about this game?
So the one thing I will say, potential look ahead spot maybe for Penn, because they do have another kind of quick turnaround. You have to play that game. You have to get on like a 5, 6, 7 hour, depending on how it'll probably be late at night when they come back. So it's still a very long road trip to come back. You have Sunday, and then Monday you got to play against Princeton and renew one of the oldest rivalries in college basketball again. So a home game against the team I think they anticipate being probably the best team in the Ivy League potentially. Potential for a look ahead spot here. I believe Dartmouth just beat Yale too, so they just won a pretty big game in their own right. But yeah, you talk about how bad they are on offense. Unfortunately, what we talked about with Penn, they don't really turn you over a lot. So I don't think that's the one thing that will take away from this game. I don't think because they don't turn teams over that they're going to give up 90 to Dartmouth. But this is a game that you should win. However, potential look ahead spot given what they have coming up Monday and Martin Luther King Day. They got to play against Princeton. So I'll leave it at that. It's a very long ride up and back, like I said. So I hope that they don't have to deal with a loss to Dartmouth on that very long ride home. So they should win this game. Like you said, not a very good offensive team. And then for Penn offensively, they should be able to have their way with them as well. So I think Dingle has another big game here. I'm not really sure who's going to stick them. but can't lose this one. But potential look ahead, like I said, because they are going to play Princeton coming up on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This should be a win for them. Should be a very easy win. So hopefully they can take care of that for their game against Princeton, which will be a very interesting one. All right, we're going to move on to the Fordham and LaSalle game. So that Dartmouth game's Penn game Saturday at 2. This game's Saturday at 3 at Tom Cola Arena. Fordham, I'm not gonna spend too much time previewing them because we talked about them not too long ago when they took on St. Joe's just last week actually. 13-4, they're 63rd in tempo, so they like to run a little bit. They're top 51, and I put 51 because they are 51st in defensive efficiency. Defensive effective field goal percentage rather, and then they are in the top 51 of free throw percentage too. Obviously their star, Darius Quisenberry, 16.9 points per game. Abdou Simbila, 7.4 rebounds per game, 2.2 blocks per game. So, this Fordham team, granted, I will say they do rank among the top, I think it's 25 in the luck rating on KenPom. So maybe they're not as good as their record says. A little bit of a Minnesota Vikings factor, actually with the exact same record as them. Listen, the Salle teams won 2 straight against teams who are arguably better than them. Can they make it a third?
I think that they can. You talk about the record that they have and the luck rating as well. They just got blown out by Dayton the other night. They had nobody to stop Ron Holmes, who I believe at 32 in that game, and just dominated him. So the one thing I'm worried about, you talk about Simbila, Khalid Moore, Nervitsky inside for Fordham. They do have some size. And if Rokas Joe is just going to continue to be sidelined, Ducore is not a guy who can play a ton of minutes. Maybe that ends up hurting them. Now, what I will say is this Fordham team, they went down 21-9 to start the St. Joe's game. Couldn't get anything going offensively. St. Joe's was knocking down shots, but when they tightened things up, I mean, St. Joe's had a tough time getting good looks. So offensively for LaSalle might be a bit of a struggle. This team definitely tightened up against St. Joe's, and they ended up kind of throttling them the rest of the game. So turnovers got to be at a minimum if they want to win for sure. But I do think they can get a win here. But one thing I'm worried about, I'm worried about the size that Fordham has. Shepard's going to have to give him good minutes and bang inside against some bigger and stronger guys. But the size is what worries me. But I do think LaSalle can win this game. Really good mojo for them winning 2 in a row. They're back at home for 2 games. This one on Saturday against Fordham, and then they're at home MLK Day against St. Joe's. So I do think they can make it 3 in a row here. This Fordham team, got to give credit to Keith Ergo for what he's done. Fordham's not an easy place to win. And then with the whole Kyle Neptune situation, handled it well, retained a lot of guys, brought some guys in. So credit to him. I think he's doing a really good job there. But give me Fran Dunphy and the Explorers to pick up a 3rd straight win, this one coming at home.
Yeah, I like it too. I definitely think, I don't think they're better than Fordham, but I think that Fordham is a little bit of a luck box. No offense, Fordham. You're a good team this year, but stats say what they say. Listen, I definitely think this is a game they can win. I know, the issue with the Bigs and Joe's just being out, that's going to hurt them. But as long as they keep playing well, like Brickus has and like Brantley has, and they get contributions from guys off the bench, maybe if the Dramé twins, I haven't really called their name in a while. Hopefully they can get some good contributions from them. There's no reason why they can't win this game. So yeah, give me LaSalle too. Why not? All right, one more for you. This is on Sunday at 3:00. You're definitely going to want to tune into this instead of the Dolphins-Bills game because that's not going to be fun. This game will be fun at the Liacouras Center. Memphis is coming to town. Penny Hardaway and company are 12-4 this year. They have the 36th ranked KenPom team, so they're a really, really good team, just outside the top 25. We always talked about teams. We've had some teams recently who like to play fast. I don't know if any have been faster than this Memphis team, who was 18th in tempo. I'm sorry, 18th in tempo. They're also in the top 50 in both defensive effective field goal percentage and turnover percentage. So definitely a team that likes to get after you defensively. This Memphis team, which might not bode well for Temple because I think when teams turn up the pressure on them, they don't always know how to react. Is this something that you think can affect them in this game? Is this something that you think Coach McKee will prepare for and figure out ways to remedy their defensive pressure, or is this just the game that Memphis is going to come to North Philly and take away a win?
So, I mean, I certainly think that Memphis could do that. I watched their game today against UCF, which they lost in double overtime. So, with that loss hanging over their head, having to come on the road again, I'm sure they're going to be very pissed off playing this game. Um, what's different about Memphis this year, though, is you think about the last couple of teams Penny Hardaway's had, and they'd had a very strong end to the season last year, making the tournament, knocking off Boise State, and then keeping it close against Gonzaga. But we always talk about how young they were. Last year, they had Amani Bates, who was essentially should have still been a high schooler. You have Jalen Duren, past years, bringing in a bunch of star-studded classes. They had James Wiseman. So what's different about this team? They have the ninth most D1 experience this year. He brings in Kendrick Davis over from SMU, who, if you told me that you think he's the best, he was the best player in the transfer portal this year, I don't think I'm going to argue with you. I mean, this guy is a bona fide stud. He's in his fifth year, averaging 20 points a game. Can shoot it pretty well. I mean, he is the guy, the straw that stirs the drink for Memphis. He can attack the basket very well. I mean, this guy is just a veteran in every sense of the word. On both ends, is going to set the tone. And how about this? DeAndre Williams just made us 26 years old, still playing college basketball. I don't know how that happened.
He's on the Stetson Bennett scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. He's on that. He's on this Stetson Bennett, Perry Ellis, whatever, Jordan DeHaan, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Stat you want to use there for being in college for so long. I wish I had that kind of career and could be at Temple until I was 26. But exactly. Regardless, very on both sides of the ball, top 50 in both offense and defense, according to Ken Pom. However, 266 and 3-point percentage. They don't shoot the ball well. They're athletic, they're bouncy, they have a little bit of size inside. This is a team you gotta keep off the glass on offense, but on defense, Memphis is horrible at defensive rebounding, and limiting opponents to one shot. They're sub 300 in that category. So if you're Temple, got to crash the offensive glass. There's a team that wants to get after you defensively, might force you into some tough shots. If you can't hit the first one, try and get to the second. Hopefully we have nobody get thrown out or nobody pick up a technical in this game. I think that would be an improvement if we could not do that if we're Temple. But this is a really, really tough game. Tulane's got a lot of experience as well. So then they have another home game against a team in Memphis. Again, a lot of experience, going to be at the top of this league. It's going to be a very, very tough game for them. Hate to doubt the Owls here. I do think Memphis pulls this one out because they're going to be very pissed off about this game tonight. I think they definitely think that multiple times they should have won this game tonight. They were up in the second half. They blew a lead. They tied it in after the first overtime period, and then they let it slip away in the second where they still made it close and had a chance to tie it and send it to a third overtime. So with all that, I'm going to take Memphis to sneak one out here. I think they're going to be pissed off about what happened tonight playing at UCF, and they're going to prove why they're one of the top teams in the AAC and come and get a win here. So would love for Temple to win this game. I think they'll make it competitive, but I think with the events that transpired tonight, I'm going to take Penny Hardaway's crew to sneak out a win here for Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the stats about shooting. Like, I would love to say that Temple's going to be able to stay in this game because of that, and hopefully they can knock down shots of their own. But I don't know. This Memphis team's really good defensively, and they're ranked as one of the best teams in the country for a reason. Obviously they're not like top 25 or whatever, but 36 in Ken Pom there's 363 teams, so to be ranked 36 is really good. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Temple's going to handle the pressure very well of the Memphis defense, and I could see that kind of, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I could see like a 9 to 11 point victory for Memphis. A sizable win, but nothing insanely crazy. Which, isn't awful because this Memphis team's really good, like we said, but definitely can be a measuring stick for Temple. If they are able to pull this out, then I'll be really, really happy with the direction that they're going in. But we shall see, because this is arguably one of the best teams they faced all year so far. Obviously, they have a date with Houston coming up in a few weeks, but for now, I mean, this is probably the best team that they faced all year. So it'll be very interesting to see. Looking forward to that one. That's pretty much all I got. Any final thoughts here before we sign off?
One thing I did want to say, I just thought it was pretty cool. I watched the Purdue Penn State game, the Palestra, sold it out. Looked like it was an awesome atmosphere. Sounded really loud on TV. Penn State said they want to try and play a game there every year. So I just thought it was pretty cool. Not often that the number one team comes and plays at the Palestra. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I was watching some football on Sunday, was also keeping tabs and watching that game as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. Wish the other Big Five ADs maybe had the same energy as the Penn State administration, who was like, yeah, we for as long as Shrewsbury's here and as long as our fans keep wanting to do it, we'll come play at the Palestra once every year. I don't know why it's like pulling teeth. No pun intended there, because I just got my wisdom teeth out with the Temple AD and some other administrators in the city. So not something I'm going to expand on, but regardless, want the point there to be that it was pretty cool seeing the Palestra sold out. Pretty cool that the Big Ten could attract a crowd and an atmosphere like that, and pretty cool to see the number one team play at the Cathedral College basketball.
Absolutely. And that's what you want to see. You want to see the best teams play there if you can. Unfortunately, the Big Five doesn't have the best teams this year, but we're going to work on it. We're going to work on it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got. I'm glad you're feeling better from your wisdom teeth. I'm glad that you not having the wisdom didn't affect you. You seem to be still on your things. So I'm going to say it went well. So good. Yeah, that's all I got for this one. Got an exciting weekend of Big Five basketball ahead of us and college basketball. Things are really starting to heat up, which is really cool to see. So, yeah, with that being said, we will. Also have to do my end of show spiel, of course. Thank you guys for tuning in. We do really much appreciate your support. As always, seriously, make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Five Pod. Make sure you check out our audio only versions on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Now that's pretty much all I got. And we will see you this weekend, or we will see you on Monday. We will see you on Monday.